Hello, everyone. On behalf of the University of California, thank you so much for being with us today in community on this UCLA Alumni Career Network webinar. So happy to be with you today. My name is Julie Sina, and I have what is the honor to serve as the Alumni Director, Associate Vice Chancellor for Alumni Affairs at UCLA, where I also work with our investment company and our foundation as the CFO and the COO. This webinar today is part of a larger UC-wide effort to unite and support alumni across our 10 campuses of amazing alumni community. We aim to today talk with you about networking, provide our information, insights, and connections that hopefully will be helpful to you to launch, grow, or expand your career wherever you are in your career journey. We're going to focus on learning skills, sharing our experiences around networking, and hopefully prepare you for a next opportunity or one in the future down the road. Our panel will do this by sharing their personal experiences, insights, the skills they've learned, the opportunities and challenges along the way throughout their career lifespan. And we are joined today by three absolutely amazing UC alumni. So we're going to jump right in. And we know this hour is going to go pretty fast. I've had an opportunity to talk with our panelists today, and they've got a lot to share, a lot of stories to tell. And also encourage you from the very beginning to go ahead and put your questions, your comments in the Q&A, and we'll get to as many today as we possibly can. So with no further ado, we're going to jump in. And I'm going to ask each of our panelists, if you could introduce yourself, the campus that you grew up on, if you will. I know we're still growing. And share with us what you do in your day job, but also your very first networking experience that you remember. Giving you a moment to think about that. They didn't know that one was coming. And Ernest, I'm going to start with you.
Awesome. So, hi, everyone. My name's Ernest Wusu. I guess my background is I'm actually from Nashville, Tennessee. First generation, both my parents came from Ghana. My dad had the opportunity to go to Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania. Then he actually went to Wharton afterwards. But grew up in Tennessee and had the amazing, awesome experience of going to UC Berkeley. Go Bears, all my Bears out there. And through my time at Berkeley, so I actually started out at MCB. And fun fact, I actually played football. Go ahead.
I'm going to start. For anybody who might not know what MCB is, what is that?
Molecular and cellular biology. So I started out doing that, and thank you for clarifying that. And with my football schedule, it was a little challenging to do that, so I switched majors and went to political economy. And it was an interesting experience because I started out at Cal playing football, doing political economy, and I started out with my career thinking again into wealth management. So I actually did 2 internships with UBS. And then lo and behold, my senior year, I got really good at football out of nowhere, and I turned it into a professional career in the NFL, where I did that for a couple of years. But the interesting thing about that was when I left and tried to decide what I was going to do after football, I had no idea what I was going to do, especially being first generation. So it was very challenging. So actually, my first networking event actually came on the UC Berkeley campus. It was actually coordinated through our athletic department that gave me an opportunity to talk to former athletes, former alum on what they're doing and to learn more about their experience. And it was very helpful. A lot of people I talked to at that event, I still talk to this day. So it was a great experience.
Thank you. And we're going to come back to talking about that later in terms of how you've kept that going. So I'm going to go to San Diego next. Aaron.
Right on.
Yeah. We know you're not on the beach, so tell us what you do for your day job there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Aaron Armstrong. Yeah, I graduated UCSD in '93. I live in Northern California now. I live in San Mateo, just south of San Francisco, and I've been working with Salesforce for the last 2 months. I moved up to the Bay Area in '98 when this little thing called the internet kicked in, and I left Southern California, where I was living in Manhattan Beach, working for 2 entertainment companies after I left San Diego and graduating from UCSD. And I'm actually from San Diego. I actually grew up swimming as a competitive swimmer at UCSD right when Canyon View opened. That's the big pool down in La Jolla in San Diego. And my first networking event was the UCSD social networking chairperson when I moved up to Manhattan Beach. I left sunny San Diego, went way up 100 miles to LA, and I started volunteering with the alumni for UCSD.
So can I just ask you a clarification question real quick, Aaron? When you mentioned the chairperson, can you just explain what that role was real quick?
It basically was organizing happy hours for all my UCSD folks, and then trying to get them to bring, their friends, right, where they were working. I was working in the entertainment industry. I was working at Sony at the time. So, yeah, did a
So
networking
you,
event.
you've been
And
doing networking events for a while, which we're going to spend some time talking about.
yeah, yeah.
So Anne,
So
let me jump over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anne Dela Cruz. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And my current role is the Director of the Human Resources and Payroll Operations Center with UCLA Campus Human Resources. I am an LA native and I attended UCLA for undergrad and grad school. I got my bachelor's degrees in English and economics, and then I came back to UCLA to earn my doctorate in educational leadership. This is exciting for me to talk about networking. My first remembrance of when I actually networked was when I was an undergraduate at UCLA. I knew I wanted to go to grad school. I didn't know what program I wanted to do. So it was literally a graduate fair where I had to meet different universities and talk to different representatives about different grad programs. Fast forward, a couple years down the line, I was very fortunate to serve as the assistant dean and director of graduate admissions for UCLA for about 6 years. So, it's always so wonderful to be able to learn more about your interests while meeting new people. So thank you so much, Julie.
So Anne, I'm going to go off another theme we've had here. We've talked to someone who played football in college, someone
Yeah.
who was a swimmer in college. And I know you've got some athletic side hustle going on there too. So you can mention that.
I do. Well, I definitely love music. So in college, I actually used to do a lot of dance classes. So I took a lot of hip hop classes while I was at UCLA. But in my spare time, when I'm not at UCLA doing HR work, I am a Zumba instructor. And I continue to love taking other dance classes that reflect world dance. So that is what I do in my spare time.
Yeah, that's great. How to keep that theme going. I have nothing to add to that, so I'm going to jump into the networking conversation. I think one of the things we could all agree on is networking takes place in all kinds of forms, but we're going to start with it as an event perspective. So my first question, I'm going to start with you, Aaron, since you mentioned you had a leadership role doing this, is how do you prepare for a networking event, particularly on that event scale? How do you prepare for that?
yeah,
Or what guidance might you have?
Yeah, I mean, most networking events, have event pages. So whenever I go to an event, I always try to see who's speaking and or who else might be attending. And then I try to rally a little posse, right? Like you would do going to a happy hour. Like, ask a friend, ask a roommate, and just rally a little posse to go to these events together. But when I go to events, I try to schedule meetings beforehand. So going to a networking event, just to have somebody, that you can try to meet up with at the event. It's always something you can schmooze through, whether it be a restaurant, a hotel, or convention hall. You have, foundation to meet up with people. And then,
So,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
just to follow up on that a minute is when you talk about putting together that group of people, your posse, or making those calls ahead of time, what's the balance of people you reach out to in terms of people you know or people you may not know before you go into that?
Oh, it's a little bit of everything. You go with who you know that might be there, and then people you don't know, people that you see on if they're on if you go to a trade show and they're speaking, you want to try to meet them. So
Mhm.
ahead and reach out to them. Reach out to them on LinkedIn. I'm now with the state and local group at Salesforce. So a lot of their email addresses are online for government, state. You can find their email addresses. That's what they're there for. Email people. And don't be shy. Just go for it. Just reach out to people. The more people you know, the better. And when you get to those events, the more enjoyable it is. So you don't have to do that cold connect. But even that's fun. Like I like doing that. And you should not hesitate to just dive in. And then to clarify earlier, yeah, swimming, but I played water polo at UCSD too. So
Okay.
I had two sports going on. Probably did more water polo than swimming, but
Hey, you've now upped the game of our panelists here.
yeah.
So you
No,
put a
it's all
lot
good.
of
It's all good.
it's all good. I totally agree.
Yeah.
You put a lot of good stuff out there. I want to follow up on. Before we do that, though, I want to give Ernest and Anne a chance to respond to that question of how do you prepare for a networking event?
Yeah, so I'll definitely go. And I think Aaron hit the nail on the head there. If you ever have the opportunity to get the list of attendees beforehand, ask for it and scan through it. I'd highly encourage you all, and every single one of us has some kind of unique power or skill set or thing that we're interested in. If you can get that list, go into social media platforms like LinkedIn, see potentially someone who has the same major as you, someone who is from the same hometown as you, and just reach out to them proactively saying, hey, we're going to this event. I saw that you were from this location. You studied the same thing. We're both going with the same intentions of learning from other people. Can you and I meet at the event, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing I encourage you to do. The second thing is, there's a lot of power in reaching out to the organizer of the event because they're creating the entire list of everyone.
Yep.
Reach out to them either before or afterwards just to meet that person because that's literally what their job is. They're just networking with people and building these lists and creating these events.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to them, get to know them, and when they have other opportunities, they can include you and you build a relationship to kind of expand your network from their own network as well.
Quick question before I go to Anne with a question from the chat is, Ernest, you've got, there's so many gems in everything you all are saying so far. A follow-up question for you though is around follow-up to all those types of people you just mentioned. How do you do follow up after you've reached out or after that networking event?
That's a great question. I'd highly encourage you all to do that. And there are a lot of different ways to organize how you do that, whether just through your conversations, taking notes in your phone of what you actually talked about to an individual. You'd be surprised. A lot of times you go to an event and you talk to 20, 30 people at times, and you have no idea what you talked about. So after you talk to someone, write like 2 or 3 sentences of what the conversation was about, what kind of value you got from them, whatever it may be, and follow up afterwards. But I would highly encourage you all to, again, take the list ahead of time, talk to people there, meet new people, follow up afterward, then also have additional conversations after the event, because that's how you kind of foster relationships, and in due time, you'll expand your network from there.
Well, I'm going to zero in on something you just said, and then I'm coming to you for real. I like the note that you gave us all on taking notes on your phone after the conversation.
Yep.
Because that eye contact, when you're particularly in those and even on the Zoom, sorry, I call them Zumbas in the Zoom, but even on the Zoom or whether in person, that eye contact, that connection is important. So a gem from you on that last one, Ernest, is do it after the convo. Even if you just got to step aside or outside the room because you don't want to lose that thought. So, Anne, there are a lot of great questions coming in, but one question I want to throw to you, because I've seen you answer this before, is, admittedly on the panel, we've brought together a lot of extroverts here, right? So what about for our introverts or for just people that get nervous before you go into these situations? What kind of advice would you give to someone who's nervous? Oh, and how do you overcome that before going into one of these events? Again, either on Zoom or in person.
That's a great question. Thank you for sharing that, Julie. So, the best thing for introverts is really to be as prepared as possible. And so if you have not put together an elevator pitch or positioning statement, this is a really great opportunity to really think about how you're going to brand and introduce yourself when you're meeting people. And so just as an overview in terms of an elevator pitch, you'll want to introduce yourself. You'll want to talk about where you are today, current state, whether it's a current position. You'll want to also talk about what you're looking to do next, and then have an ask to say, do you know anybody who might be able to talk to me about X? So I think really having that positioning statement or elevator pitch ready to go is helpful. And then I would say to add to that is really practicing with your friends in a safe space, being able to record yourself on Zoom, watching it, refining your positioning statement, getting feedback from others that you practice with. It might sound a little mechanical at first, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. And I would say you should probably have a 30-second, 60-second, and 90-second version of your pitch. So that would be my advice for that.
I see you, Ernest. Aaron, I'm going to come to you next, but Anne, I'm going to ask you a quick follow-up question.
Sure.
And I only because I know you and I know you can do this. Give us your 30-second pitch.
Sure. So I'll use this as an example for being here. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Anne Dela Cruz. I'm a UCLA alum, and I'm currently the director of the Human Resources and Payroll Operations Center. Over the last 15 years of being in higher education, I've spoken with students from over 30 universities about applying to graduate school and networking their way to different careers. I'm very interested next in learning about how I might be able to expand that offering to others. Would you know anybody that I can speak to in terms of people or organizations that might be interested in my offering? Thank you.
So well done. So before I go to Aaron, Ernest, did you have something to add to that? I saw you put your hand up there.
Yeah, I did. And I think, the aspect of being introvert or even nervousness at times with having these conversations, I guess full candor, like I'm actually a sales leader, right? And you'd imagine a sales leader does not get nervous. I still to this day get nervous and have that introverted feeling in these networking opportunities. But what Anne mentioned is the aspect of coming prepared allows you to anchor your confidence on something you actually can control, and allows you to feel less nervous and kind of bring yourself out there a bit more often. So I think the guide that she shared is perfect, and it's not rare, or you shouldn't feel bad if you do feel nervous or introverted, because I feel the exact same way at times as well. So just want to share that.
Mm-hmm. I think we all do the word trip. I mean, you all have witnessed me doing this on this Zoom already. So case in point. So Aaron, I see your hand up, but I'm going to ask you a question too, if I could. So,
Okay.
because when you joined the Zoom, when you introduce yourself, you shared with us that you've been with Salesforce. You joined 2 months ago.
Yes.
And so that first question around, have any of you switched career paths for different fields? And how have you leveraged, see there, I tripped over that word right there. How have you leveraged your existing network, or do you establish new networks? So I see you want to add something, but if you could also take that question, I would appreciate that, given us, you've told us you've just switched about 2 months ago.
Yeah. No worries. Well, all I was trying to say about the nervousness, right? And I say this to people just getting into the workforce and to our kids. We have 2 teenagers. Just engage everybody like their family or friends. Just pretend like you're telling your grandma what you do or what you want. And when you take that approach, it just gives you a sense of comfort. And and when you go to these networking events, people are there to network. So just have fun. That's the key thing. Have fun. Don't feel nervous, right? Now, the question about career paths. Yeah, I've had a lot of different technology sales roles since moving to the Bay Area in 98. Connect with me on LinkedIn. My network is your network. And you'll see, I only go back 5 careers, but I've worked for lots of companies.
And I'm going to stop. He said 5 careers, everybody.
Yeah. And so don't worry, just roll with it. You'll find the people that you like to work with, and you'll leverage that network each time. That's why when you go to networking events, like telling my son, we went to this orientation for one of the UCs that he got accepted to, and he hasn't decided yet. He's a senior. So I just told him, just go up and meet people. Just meet people, meet the professors. They're your network. And once you make that connection, it's an asset for you in the future. Same thing in your career. You go from one job to the next. You just keep people in your network.
So
then
could you
invite them to the networking event? Go ahead. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, I'm sorry. I keep trying to interrupt you. I explained to my panelists. See, I'm tripping all the time. Explained to our panelists before that I do interrupt. That is something I do try to work on, but not right now. Aaron, so could you, for our folks that are listening in, could you give an example of how you've used one network or leveraged one network as you've moved careers or planted seeds around what you're going to do next?
Yeah, I mean, the role here with Salesforce, I met some people here 2 years ago at a Dreamforce. And if you don't know Dreamforce, it's their annual event. Thousands and thousands of people come into San Francisco. And I met people in that group 2 years ago. Well, Salesforce, like lots of companies, had lots of downsizing and hiring freezes and whatnot. But I made the connection. And I made the connection through one of my groomsmen. That's how I got in there. And then I always kept the network warm in the sense of for when the opportunity opens up. And that's it's a little bit of luck, that's a little bit of persistence and follow-up. So again, leverage your network whenever you need to for whatever you need. If you just need someone to talk to, that's your network. And if you're thinking of a career path, changes. I think that was one of the questions was around, leveraging your network. It all comes down to those relationships. So if it's a past boss, like I still keep in touch with my boss at Sony. She now works at the White House. Oh no, she moved jobs. She's Social Security now. She's
so Aaron, I think we all would like to have your network so we can all leverage those too. But you talked about the follow-up, and Ernest, that's something you mentioned early on. It's like, when I come back to you with this question here is how, one of our great questions coming in, everybody, is, have you ever gotten stuck with someone that's kind of latched on to you at a networking event? And this question says like Velcro. I think we got it. How have you moved on? How do you exit a conversation or exit someone that may have latched onto you? Any
That's a
guidance
great
on that?
That's a great question. So yes, that will definitely happen. I try to be respectful, right? Because at the end of the day, someone is talking to me for a reason. They find value in the conversation with myself, and I do want to make sure I'm honoring that. So the best way to kind of exit is either to just bluntly say, "May I use the restroom," or I want to attend to another event or speak to someone else. But I think the one thing I will say is it's really good to be intentional with the events you're going to, but also realize that no conversation is a bad conversation. You'd be surprised how one conversation with one person who might be in a completely different realm, have nothing to do with what you're doing, could lead to a door being open to exactly where you want to go. So still be respectful, still honor the fact that they are engaging with you and talking to you, but just kind of be respectful in the fact that maybe just ask to use a restroom or say that you want to talk to other people and let it go from there.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. Anybody have anything to add to an exit strategy that's worked for you or maybe hasn't?
Yeah, so
Aaron,
I have one,
Anne, and
Julie,
then Aaron.
as well.
Go ahead, Anne.
So
Go
I
ahead.
think, definitely thanking them, as Ernest mentioned, is really helpful, and maybe citing something from that conversation that was your key takeaway so they could hear that you were actively listening. But then also, as Ernest said, mentioning that, this is such a great event. It's been wonderful speaking with you. There are others that I would also love to connect with. So that's one way to exit as well. The other component is if they keep going, you could always say, I'm going to get a snack or a drink. Would you like anything? And then as you're going, you may see other people. And then essentially, when you do come back to them, you could say, I've met so-and-so on my way. Would you like to join in the conversation? And that's really the connector part of, building that and growing that network.
Well, I think that aligns with the theme that each of you have said so far too, is every conversation is a good conversation. Keep that top of mind, even including how you choose to move on.
Yeah,
Aaron.
the tactic I've used over the years is like Ernest has said, like being intentional. Like when you go to these events, go ahead and set a goal for yourself. I'm going to meet 3 new people, or whatnot, or even tell somebody, yo, Ann, I'm trying to meet 10 new people at this event. I got to go. Like, and go ahead, and you're not being disrespectful because it's a networking event. It's not a blind date, right? Like you're moving around, you're moving and you're shaking, and you just keep going. You just pinball around, the event. That's kind of how I do it. But I rarely don't have meetings already set up. Then what happens is then you can introduce people to other people. Then you become the matchmaker or the introducing. Hey, I met Ernest, and this is how I know Ernest. And it's just fun. You'll have more fun with it when you have those meetings. And then you also are just trying to hit your goal of 3, 5, 10, new contacts. And then the other thing too that I recommend for everybody is LinkedIn has QSR codes. So you can pull up your profile, just do it in the event, because then when you connect with people, it'll be in your feed for new connections, and you can go back to it, and it's your audit of who you met that event. And you got to go, hey, I got to get 5 more connects before I leave this event, or I'm not going to hit my goal. So that's another.
So I like the way you're creating the sense of gamification around the networking piece, Aaron. Yeah. And I think the other thing I think is coming through here too, which I want to go back to just for a second before I go to my next question along a different line, is again, the questions come up a couple of times about how do I deal with if I'm an introvert, I'm just really nervous. And I think, Ernest, you would suggest go with a friend. And one of the things that the friend can do is exactly what Aaron just described, is create a conversation. There's so many degrees of separation pretty quickly. I can introduce Ernest and say, hey, he's interested in this or he's done this. I know that's an interest of yours as well. So be the connector also as you're at those events. But again, focusing on the event again is one question I want to throw out to you all to think about, and anybody can jump into this one, is does networking change throughout your career journey? Thinking about, we've got folks that are part of our alumni community webinar here that are either, at the early part of their career, maybe looking to reinvent themselves or looking to make a move. So is networking different at various stages of your career journey? Anyone want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I can start off.
Go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
And Ernest, you're on deck.
Okay,
go ahead,
sounds good. So what I would say is I think the process is very similar, but the content and the connections may look different. So, when we talk about, say, the positioning statement, to Aaron and Ernest's point, it's important to be intentional and to set a goal in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. at a networking event. So really being able to hone in on your elevator pitch for that particular purpose is going to be really critical, and really knowing who your audience is so that you can tailor that accordingly. So I would say it's still a very similar process, different content, different people.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd say the one thing that I've noticed is when you start out, it's probably a little bit more challenging as you're meeting more people and building your network, but it gets easier through time because you actually start to know people and know like how they interact with others, and you can start connecting dots easier. So just have comfort in the fact that when you go to your first event, it might feel uncomfortable, you might feel introverted, but your next event will be better because you're talking to different people and you can leverage that to have more success in the future. So the overall framework is the same, but I've noticed through time it does get easier.
That's it. You've convinced me. So a question that's come up a couple of times is, I think this is true at the beginning of your career and this journey is, how do you find networking events? Aaron, I'm going to pop that one over to you. How do you look for networking events?
Yeah, somebody put that in there. I'm trying to power out some answers to some of these questions. There's so many awesome questions. For the UC events, they're all online. So actually, when I go and travel, I'll look at the UC events going on in the area. Could be really close to where my business meetings are. But yeah, you have to just look at you just got to manage the calendar. Like I have a running list of events I've been to and I want to go to. And whether I can actually make it is a different, story, because I just can't be everywhere. But you can virtually be everywhere. That's the beauty, right? You look up these websites. Yeah, maybe you want to go to this event in Paris. Can't go, right? Yeah, it's too expensive or whatnot. But you can look at the speaker list. You can look at the partner list. You can look at these lists and you can reach out. And I've reached out to plenty of people at shows that I might go to, but I know I probably won't be able to make it, but I do want to go. And maybe I'll go the next year.
So Aaron, how many reaches do you do? If you don't hear from somebody, how many times do you go back?
Oh man, I've been known to be very aggressive in networking.
Somehow I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I never stop. I never stop, because that's one thing I love about being in sales is that it's your network. And even for my son who wants to go into engineering, same thing. When he goes to his robotic competitions, dude, you've got to connect with these people. And once you connect with those people, he's done 2 competitions, Oklahoma and Florida. And he's meeting people. I'm like, meet people, meet these other kids. They'll be your network. So for the events, just go and research and connect. And if someone's on a panel discussion that is of interest for you, man, I'd really love to be in that seat. And the event passes after the event. Hey, did you get any good questions from the audience? Stay engaged with them. That goes back to the question somebody put about how do you keep your network warm? You just keep after them. I see over the last 5 years, people are more engaging on LinkedIn than their business inbox. And I know why. And that's because your LinkedIn database is portable. So when you change jobs, your LinkedIn network stays with you forever. Now, for a company, it does not. So as you keep warm with these people you meet at networking event, trade shows, it's part of your network and it's your asset, right? And your extended network. I say the same thing to everybody. Like my network is your network. If I know people, I will tell you how I know them. And if I don't know them, we connected 3 years ago and I don't know them, I'll tell you. But
so I think that the other point that you're making, which I really appreciate too, is when you come in contact with people, it's okay to ask people, are you willing to share your network with me? Yeah. There's a question in the chat and Ernest, it's specifically for you that I'd like to put out there for you to respond to. And this attendee says that they want to hear more from Dr. Dela Cruz and Ernest because they are BIPOC. And they want to know, did you meet any people with biases when you were a young professional? But I'll expand that in your professional career. Did it lead to barriers, and how did you manage those interactions?
Yeah,
you want to go first, Ernest?
I think it's fair to say that doesn't only happen when we're young, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess I'll start with that. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I will say that does happen. And you will, I mean, I don't want to put it on you to the fact that this as a fact, but like more times than not, you're probably seeing some kind of bias impact whatever progression you're making throughout your career, right? Um, and I don't want to give the answer of just do more or try harder, things like that, but I was aware of it and I just kind of took it for what it was, unfortunately, knowing that was going to happen. But what I kind of anchored myself on was affinity groups. So when aside from the fact that
Can you explain, in case somebody doesn't know, what an affinity group is?
yeah, an affinity group. So think of like Black people in tech or Black people in the sales world, right? Like those are specific communities of people like me in my industry that we're all had an opportunity to connect with each other with, right? Same thing with the fact that when I first got out of the NFL and I went into my athletic department, those are people that knew me, they were like me, and it was a lot easier for me to network. So I typically tried to anchor really hard on that at first, and through time when I started building my career, it became a lot easier. I encourage you to find those kinds of groups, people like you, like myself, and network through that avenue. And you'll more times than not have people who are more willing to advocate for you and push you forward in any kind of process than in other events. And I know it's not necessarily the answer people want to hear, but it's what my experience was, and I love that. So yeah.
Well, and I appreciate it. I think what the individual was asking was exactly your experience. So thank you for sharing that.
And Julie,
Anne?
I can maybe add to what Ernest was saying. I think this is a great question. I did experience that. And to Julie's point, it's something that you could experience even if you're not a fresh graduate or a young professional. What I would say is there were definitely some barriers in terms of really being able to talk with others about really your strengths. And that is really where the importance of storytelling is important for you to advocate for yourself. So really being able to talk about your accomplishments and strengths and the things that you've done to make impact, whether it's experiences from school or things that you're doing in your career. I think being able to articulate and connect the dots of upward career progression is helpful. I think in addition to seeking, professional certifications or degrees, that really adds to some of the ability to talk through some of those accomplishments depending on your industry and function. So really exploring what those are to add to that level of experience and credibility. And what I would say in situations where I did and was aware of some of the barriers in terms of, moving forward in conversations, this is really the importance of leveraging your network and trying to find mentors who can also not only support you, but also advocate for you. I say this, and Julie's on the call. I did a leadership program at UCLA for UCLA professional staff, and I was very fortunate and honored to have Julie Sina as my mentor. And really, part of the excitement of learning from Julie was also her willingness to share with me her network, to introduce me to people from all over the campus so I could see what the possibilities were. So informational interviews, you may find that one person who may have that initial response to you that may not be the most positive, but I think it's important to go back to your mentors, identify others, and keep going.
Thank you both. And what you both said leads into a question in the chat. And there are so many great questions here. So sorry, we're not going to get to all of them, but we're going to do our best. And I see you, Aaron, but I'm going to put this question out there first if I could. And then you could maybe start and also add your comment. And it's about authenticity. Is when you share about your work, how do you balance strengths and weaknesses without sounding too much like you're in sales, even though we know sales is a good thing because we got two people on our Zoom. But how do you balance? How do you really, in your own narrative, in your pitch, if you will, do it with authenticity?
Yeah, I can share on that. And my biggest perspective on that, and this kind of aligns with anything that I'm doing, is I'm always going to be authentic, because if I'm not, I'll find myself in an environment where I'm forced to act a certain way that I don't want to, right? And I know at times that may not be what you want to do, but the worst you can do is put yourself in an environment where you're supposed to be a certain thing or act a certain thing that you don't want to. And the best way to make sure you can avoid that is being your true self. And it's the same thing with networking, with finding your opportunities. Show who you are as a whole person and be proud of what you are, and know that that's going to lead you to where you want to go.
Aaron, you had your hand up before. I also want to acknowledge that if you had something you want to add to the earlier point.
Yeah, my earlier point too is, and it's interesting. Authenticity is a huge one. I try to emphasize that with everything I do. Building trust, being authentic. But the comment earlier, so people don't think Aaron Armstrong is Filipino or Puerto Rican, but that's my mom is Puerto Rican Filipino, right? And the one thing that we talked about earlier in going to UCSD or going to this orientation for UC Santa Barbara, like the diversity within the UC Regent community is awesome.
Mhm.
And you keep that energy out into the workforce and when you're looking for work, right? And that's what you walk into these networking events, you be a proud UC graduate, regardless. And you're a good person, right? And you look at things with, it's kind of an inclusive eye, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of gets to Ernest's point about just being authentic, just be yourself.
Mhm.
And you come across those people that might not be like that, whatever. You just walk down another path. There's so much opportunity out there. You don't have time for that. I mean, you want to be with good people, good
But
energy.
Aaron, can I stop you there for a second? One, I want to acknowledge and I appreciate you
Go for it.
sharing. But
Yeah.
what I also want to say to you, if I'm watching this Zoom from afar, I'm going to say, Aaron, you can do that because you're so confident. What would you say to somebody that is thinking right now, I hear him, but I just can't do that.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, right? Because I see this with our own kids. Their comfort zone in our house, right? And there's moments where they might not be as aggressive getting out into what I know they could do, right? So that's my advice. Just again, when you're looking for work, you're going into events, seriously, treat it like you're just engaging family because you know that comfort zone, you know that confidence you have. Same thing you've built if you're just graduating from school. Your roommates, that set of network that you have is huge. That strength, you take that. You take that into your interviews, you take that into your workforce, and it'll be welcomed. I promise you. Like that's really becomes your true self. Like Ernest
Mhm.
said, that's authentic,
Mhm.
coworkers or just be yourself. Yeah, you'll be great. You'll do great. You just have to keep after it though. You like unfortunately things just aren't handed to you. You have to go get it. And
When
with
I
that,
think,
so
go ahead, Aaron. I
no, I
think
was just saying
that
you have to be aggressive, like I said earlier. And yeah, water polo is an aggressive sport. I've had an aggressive personality my whole life, but I know everybody has the capabilities to do a step towards that type of,
Mhm.
and it's not even aggressive, it's just being passionate and,
Mhm.
and using that energy that I know everybody has. It's just turning it on for your career.
When
And
I
you can,
think, just going back to something that Ann said earlier too, is also along the way, ask for feedback. Find those trusted, whether it's a trusted mentor, colleague, friend, say, I was in the room with you. Can you give me any feedback on that? That's check in every once in a while. So switching gears, tools. LinkedIn's come up a number of times. The QR code idea, which is a great one's come up a couple of times. Can each of you share some of the tools that you use in this space? And with that, how much time do you spend on that?
So I can start on the LinkedIn piece. So I would say definitely since I'm an HR professional in my current job, I am in LinkedIn all the time. I know that I definitely post a lot of positions, not just at UCLA, but through my networks. A lot of my colleagues will ask me to post for their openings. So I think, for me, I'm probably spending at least I check LinkedIn 2 times a week at least, just to be able to share information so the content is timely. What I think is so great about LinkedIn is it's a way for you to, again, connect the dots and tell your story in terms of what you're doing today and what you are looking to do in the future. So, really keeping that up to date each time you have a new position, accomplishment, project. It's really great to do it while it's fresh. So updating your LinkedIn profile is super helpful from a branding perspective, and it should match all of your other branding type of materials you create, like your resume or your CV or your cover letter. But what I would say too is use it as a robust research tool. You could set up job alerts if there's certain things that you're looking for. You could also look at your 6 degrees of connections to see who you might be able to ask for a warm introduction. And then really just being able to learn about the groups so you can be part of these discourse communities that you're maybe looking to enter if you haven't been there, but you want to say career switch. On my profile in LinkedIn, I did a talk for the UC Humanists a few years ago on how to maximize the use of LinkedIn. So for those of you who might want to take a look at that, that's a resource available to you all.
Anything besides LinkedIn that you use?
So for me, a lot of it is, additional to LinkedIn. So there might be some blog posts that I might add to for some of the professional organizations that I'm part of. So I will actually create that content and then link it out from my LinkedIn profile. Sometimes I'll have speaking engagements, and similarly, that will be recorded and then I'll put that on LinkedIn. But really, I think being able to start off with one tool first, building that out, then you can add the supporting information from all the other media that's possible. I think that's super helpful.
Does anybody still use business cards?
I use business cards and V cards. So since the pandemic, this is a question that I get often in terms of how do we do this? So in some spaces, it's a little bit more comfortable to still exchange business cards. And I think, that's also knowing your audience and the group that you're going into. But since the pandemic, I think there is also, consideration of space, which we did not see pre-pandemic. So if you don't already have a virtual card that you create on your cell phone, you may want to create that. So after you meet with somebody, you could just literally send it to each other and exchange contacts. And there's no physical contact involved.
No business cards for you, Ernest?
No, but I will say when I started out, I had business cards, but not anymore.
Any tools besides LinkedIn that you utilize?
Yeah, so I think, Anne mentioned the majority.
LinkedIn is good. I'm just putting other things out there. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I think the biggest thing is a lot of people use LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is also industry and role specific. So just because I'm in sales and Anne's in HR, same with Aaron, we're all using LinkedIn. That may not be the case for you all. Just being mindful of that. But I've also seen communities popping up that are helpful as well, and that could be in the form of a website, a Slack community. Those are also great ways to engage with others and build that networking experience. But I just be mindful of the fact that not everyone is on LinkedIn, though it might seem that way. So really get a sense of your role in the industry, what that actually looks like.
So someone has put another question out there that, again, switching gears, trying to get in as much of this good stuff in here as we can. Ageism. Thoughts on networking as we age, and how are folks that are, we do a lot of work in our alumni association called the Second Act, where we're looking at individuals 50 plus that are reinventing themselves. Any comments on ageism and reinvention as you go through that career journey?
I guess
you're talking to the old fart. I guess you're talking to the old fart on the Zoom here. So again, it is what it is, right? Just be yourself and just be authentic and be engaging. And if people have biases towards anything, you don't want to work there and you don't want to be there. So go. That's why I put that on a couple of the answers to some questions.
Thanks, Aaron.
You go with it and you just be confident on your decision. Just do it. Go.
Mm-hmm.
And with ageism, sure, it's out there. Mm-hmm. It is just like there's other discriminations going on, but you gotta just overcome it. Your grit to keep going is what's going to make you, your family, your household, your friends happy.
And your grit may be tied to your authenticity, right?
Yep.
So how do you, here's another question that I see in there is guidance for presentation, speaking fashion, speaking overall, thoughts on how one presents itself, whether you're on Zoom or whether you're in the room?
So I can start and then really look to my colleagues to give their insights because they're also great presenters. I would say, really it depends, and, you really want to be strategic about the medium that you're going to use and the content that you're going to provide, knowing your audience. In some cases, if you're doing a virtual Zoom presentation, there's definitely some, level of engagement, but you're not always able to read the room in the same way that you might be able to when you're in person. So, to Julie's point about, getting feedback from others, you can certainly practice and see, what that looks like. And there might be things that are nonverbal that you're not aware of as well. So I think it's really important to be mindful about the verbal and nonverbal communication styles that you bring. The other piece that I would say is really being able to think about ways that you continue to engage in your presentations, whether it's Zoom or in person. That might be, just stopping, getting a pulse for the room, asking questions, maybe having a poll if you have that capability, just so that you can continue to just be able to pivot if you needed to. And I think that's so much a part of keeping people interested and engaged in wanting to continue to network with you.
I think the one thing I'll add to that too, and I think everything you said I completely agree with, going back to the whole concept of nervousness or introvertedness, every single person who does a presentation, a webinar like this, everyone to a certain degree gets nervous. It's completely normal. I've always noticed that anchoring on preparation gives you confidence. I've also seen individuals who are very well attuned to their mission of why they're doing the presentation, what kind of opportunities it can lead for others or themselves. That kind of gives them that confidence to kind of push through it. But just want to put it out there, as you're doing this, it is okay to be nervous. We all get nervous all the time. It's completely normal, but having a very specific, tangible thing like your mission or anchoring on the preparation is a way to kind of combat that.
Thank you. And as an example, you all have seen me trip over my words over the last hour. So there you go. So a couple quick questions I want to try to get in there still. There's Jordan asks an interesting question that kind of brings us full circle, which is essentially, what's the point? I'm unfamiliar with networking. What's the end goal? What's the end goal, Aaron?
Well, it's up to you, Jordan. I haven't met you. You might be comfortable in your job, right? The goals are all up to you, right? When you go to these events, it's really up to what you want to get out of it. For me, I'm in sales. So I'm trying to connect with people and I'm trying to learn about people. I'm trying to see what their business is all about. And the plug earlier, I know Ernest talked about the Slack communities. That's the group I'm in at Salesforce, right? So I represent the Slack team, and it's productivity and collaboration tool. So I live kind of a core DNA to me. Now for you, I don't know. And so you just have to set your goal for what the outcome is. That's it.
So Aaron says, thank you for that plug. So I've got a question I want each of you to answer. This is a great question. Well, they're all great questions. When you are being networked, when you're in the room and people are wanting to meet you, what's your favorite question? What's a question that people ask you? They're like, yes, finally.
A great question.
And what's your favorite question?
Yeah, so what I like to ask when I'm networking is, what motivates you? What gets you excited?
What about you, though? When I'm networking with you, what do you want me to ask you?
Oh, I'd love to learn more. I think what I would expect is someone to say the same thing. What do you love? What are you passionate about? What keeps you excited? And sometimes it also sounds a little different in terms of what keeps you up at night, what worries you, what challenges. So I think it's some variation of what drives you, what excites you. And I think when you're able to get questions about yourself, especially for the introverts out there, it's easier to talk about a content area that you know best, and what content area that is most comfortable than talking about you. And I know sometimes it feels a little bit uncomfortable because oftentimes we're taught to be humble, but there is still a way to talk about yourself authentically and share what you're comfortable sharing, while being able to share some nuggets for you to take that relationship potentially to the next level.
So we're walking in the room and I'm going to network. I'm going to come up to you, Ernest. What do you hope I ask you as me networking with you?
I think Ann hit the nail on the head there. So definitely ask them about their passions and motivations. But I will say the one most common question that I think really good networkers ask after the engagement's about to finish is, what are you working on and how can I help you? Right? Because that kind of brings everything full circle as to, like, you have this conversation that's helping me, but like, I want to follow this up afterwards and find ways to help you in the future because you're learning what they actually care about and what they're working on. So I don't always ask that question. I wish I was better and consistent about it. But the people that I see who are really good networkers, they always ask that question as the conversation is ending.
Aaron, I'm coming over to you next. What do you want me to ask you?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just like in enterprise software sales. Like, people are asking, like, oh, how are you different? Or what's that one cool thing? Or what are the top 3 things? It's like, no, I don't want to answer that because I don't know. So in questions, there is no silver bullet question. You come up to me, ask me any question, that's the right question. That's a part of being yourself, right? Because if you have a script, You're just going to people are going to throw you a curveball. So just ask questions. Just keep being curious and go. And now for people to me, like, I'm just stoked to talk to anybody. So ask me whatever question you want about the event, what I'm working on, what my favorite color is. Do I have kids? I mean, just be engaging and be authentic. Just be yourself. Oh, and the other thing too, at an event though, if it's a trade show or whatnot, good questions to ask would be like, I've worked a lot of trade show booths. Ask people, hey, what presentations were you in? What topics came up? Hey, did the presenter get stumped with some question they couldn't answer? Or that's how you can get engagement, and then you can build that trust and rapport with different people.
Thank you. Ernest, here's a question for you that came in because when you introduced yourself, you talked about being a first-gen college student. And this individual says, I'm a first-generation college grad, don't have a strong foundation to build upon, whether family or friends. What suggestions might you have for someone trying to build those connections, either from scratch or LinkedIn strategies?
Yeah, so it was definitely challenging. I wish my parents had gone through what I went through because it would have made things a lot easier for me, but unfortunately it didn't. But I will say that was even more so the reason why I had to have a good network and leverage that experience to grow my career. So again, I kind of go back to what I mentioned around like finding your networks, finding your affinity groups. Be very intentional with the opportunities you have with engaging people who are like-minded. Find mentors and mentors within that, and use as a way to get in. Because the reality is, you don't have your parents like I did to kind of push you in a direction and say, this is how you should interview, this is how you should apply this job. But you can find mentors who will. And the best place to do that is to go to these affinity groups and leverage them to get to where you want to go.
Well, and speaking of affinity groups, you have this incredible UC alumni community, many of whom are first generation students. So sharing that about yourself at a networking event, particularly UC networking event, opens a lot of those doors and conversations as well. So just putting that out there. So,
And I
and
guess the
go
last thing
ahead.
I'll say, just having confidence that you actually don't have to go into this blind.
Yeah.
I know the other way that's how I was going through it, but you don't have to go into a blind. Talking to people who are like-minded is the way I did it. I'd highly recommend do that.
And Ernest, I appreciate that. I'm a first generation college student as well, although several years before you went to college or before you were born, perhaps. But I think sometimes it's still, even for me, I walk into a room, I've got to deal with that of, am I the only person here that doesn't quite know what I'm coming in with? And the answer to that is a definite no. Just open that door for that conversation. So as we have done even on this webinar. So, Anne, putting your HR hat on for a moment, if you could, as we think about these networking situations, questions to stay away from, questions that are inappropriate.
Yeah, so I think, definitely as we think about the questions that you may want to stay away from, you may also want to think about, again, the audience and the level of familiarity that you have with a particular person. And so, if there are certain pieces that, might relate to protected categories, those are absolute no-nos that you will not want to bring up. So whether it has to deal with gender, age, et cetera, I think it's different if someone that you're meeting with, provides you with some insight into their identity and they bring that up. So similar, to earlier in our introductions, I'm comfortable sharing my pronouns. And so I think, really waiting to see what the other person is willing to share and then listening actively, then you can really look at opportunities to delve into certain things. Really knowing the type of event that you're going to and the networking goal. So if the event is something that your goal is to network professionally, preparing the questions that would be relevant for the industry or function that you're looking to do. If your networking is more on the personal side, you can still learn about people, but really I think it's also the way you word the question, so it's more open-ended and allows the other person to speak more about their experience or their identity. So I think, I would say that as long as you're not touching the protected categories, there's a way to ask the question as long as you ask it such that they would be able to open up and share as much as they feel comfortable sharing.
But I think you hit on something else that's so important, and that is just, I think when we're networking, we're so busy sometimes thinking about, maybe it's just me, what the next question is going to be, that I'm not really focused on listening. So it's just through listening, you're going to pick up so much as well. So I knew this hour was going to go by fast, and it sure has done that. I know, speaking for myself. So I want to allow each of you this last opportunity what do you want to leave people with in terms of your last nugget? And there's been so many nuggets, but your last nugget around. And again, we focused on events. So many other ways to network, right? But this has been more about walking in and how do you manage those events, either online or virtual. So as we get ready to close up, last nuggets of advice for our panelists.
Sure, I'll go. I think the biggest thing is there's a lot of power in this. It's not easy to get started, but through time it gets easier and easier. But what you'll start to realize, especially as you're progressing your career and finding new opportunities, my recent company I've been here for almost 5 years now, because of my networking and how I had conversations that were helping people, there's an opportunity to help people in conversations. The reason why I got here was because there was someone who was trying to break into tech. She had no idea how to do it, wanted some guidance and mentorship. I helped her. When an opportunity opened up, she recommended me, and they were basically selling me the opportunity, right? So I still feel like I didn't really interview for the role. But the reason why I say that is because if you're intentional with networking, if you're giving to people, you'll find situations in your future, whether it's through jobs, through research, through education, whatever it may be, it will be a lot easier to achieve the results you're looking for as long as you're intentional.
I love that if I'm following you, so let me check in on that, is someone who you mentored turned around and mentored you. So
Yep, exactly.
it's I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, so Julie, I can certainly, I would say if there was one piece of advice to leave is really just to, put yourself out there and experiment. And there's no right or wrong way per se to network. And I think really being able to not only think about how you're going to present and brand yourself, because that evolves over the course of your career, but really not being afraid to approach somebody. And I know networking can be scary, but really reframing networking from this mindset of, I'm going to somebody and I'm going to ask for something to something that looks like I really just want to learn about people and I want to learn about their stories and really being able to think about, either how this person might be someone that you can provide some information and resource to, or in some cases where it might be the opposite. So really just a genuine curiosity of meeting and learning people makes it less scary.
I love that. I love that. There's a lot to celebrate in that. Aaron.
Oh man, I have too many. Darn it.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, reality is there are so many great questions being put out there, and I've been trying to respond to them. My one advice would be just continue to network. You literally have to set a goal in expanding your network. It's not finding that one person. It's not one person, just like it's not one answer. It's not one path. And that's the power of the collective network. So just set a weekly goal or a monthly goal. I do it myself, and I'm constantly building my network. And I do it on LinkedIn, but I do it also in text messaging. If I go golfing and I meet somebody that is in our foursome, yo, dude, give me your cell phone. Boom. And then you have it. But just set a goal to expand your network. I promise you it'll be fruitful. And obviously the UC network rocks. So that's the easiest. And that was one question. You see a UC graduate on LinkedIn, yo, banana slug, what up? Like you play that card because that's your community. It's your extended community. And so
and our friends at Santa Cruz, thank you.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, some people were asking about how do you keep people warm? You just have to keep staying engaged. You have to be the facilitator. People don't call you. You have to follow up with them. So just get after it. You got it. You got this.
Yeah, thank you. And that I think collectively, that's what we would like to say to all of you that have tuned in today. You got this. And you have an incredible resource in the alumni community from the University of California. And on behalf of the University of California, I really want to thank you for joining us in community today with the UC Alumni Career Network. It was just really an incredible conversation. Really appreciate you making the time. And in particular, Anne and Aaron and Ernest, the generosity of your time and your experience. Really appreciate that. So we encourage you to visit the UCA Alumni Career Network online to explore past recordings as well as those coming up. We'll be dropping the link in the chat box for that, or if that probably already has happened. And we have an in-person event coming up on August 22nd in Riverside. So hope to see many of you there and keep this University of California career community going. And I think that suggestion was a good one. We see you, you see us. It's an incredible you see us everywhere. You get that part. Thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous day and hope to see you all real soon. Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.